No, Uncle Willie never got interviewed. Nancy calls him Uncle Willie, and I guess I do too. But I like to let him have the last word whenever I talk, because he never got to be interviewed. And so music was really, really important to the brothers. They were said to be musical geniuses. They could hear a song one time and play it on almost any instrument. They were often cast as imbeciles, as the word was at the time, and said to be mentally inferior. But they were not, according to their doctor, according to lawyers who deposed them later in life. And they were excellent musicians by all accounts. And so he had that love of music into the end of his life. And one of the things he would do is, he was totally blind at the end of his life, and he kept this picture of his mother next to his bed, and he would straighten it every night. And he would say to Nancy, she could have been killed, she could have been arrested, and she came for us. And he would tell the story over and over. But one of the things he would do is he would also sing the songs that he had played and sang with the circus. And in 1914, when they were first taken, there was a really popular song, beginning of World War I, and it was an Irish war anthem about missing home, called It's a Long Way to Tipperary. And in the early years, he told his family members that they were told they weren't ever allowed to go to school, so they never learned to read. They weren't outrightly beaten or anything like that, because they were going to be displayed, so they had to look okay. But they were told to quit crying that their mother is dead. They were trying to get them to quit asking to go home. And so they would sing this song at night, and George, the older brother, would say to Willie, I know she's alive, I know we're going to see her again one day. So later in his life, until he had a stroke at the age of 103, he still played these songs on his guitar, and he wore the fretboard down. There's a picture in the book of the fretboard worn down with the finger indentations. And after he had a stroke, he would simply hold the guitar and he could still sing. And then when he started to get tired, he asked Nancy to bring in a cassette recorder, so that when he was tired, he could listen to a recording of himself singing. And so this is one of his songs, and this is why I tell you about his mother and how that still occupied him at the end of his life. Tom, I'm having a hard time finding the cursor.
Yeah, your mouse is on that screen there. So
oh.
You should be able to pass over the speaker.
If I do what?
You have to face the screen.
Oh.
So turn around.
Oh, I see.
There you go.
But I don't see it. Oh, there it is. Okay. So get ready. It's real short. This is like, that was hard. I missed it.
You got it.
It's a long way to Tipperary. It's a long way to go. It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know. Goodbye, my piccalilli, farewell, the square. It's a long, long way to Tipperary, but my heart right there.
I love that. So I just have a few more slides to show you, and then I'll take questions. Everybody always wants to know, well, what did Nancy think about the book? So I did what I did with John Bassett, which as a courtesy and for fact-checking purposes only, he got an early, both of them got an early but edited copy of the story. And John Bassett had a lot to say, you might imagine. Nancy had very little to say. In fact, she said nothing. She gave me back 3 or 4 or 5 changes and said nothing. So I didn't really know whether she liked the book or not. A couple weeks before the book launch party, I had given her invitations to the party to pass out to her former customers, because she's retired and the shop is closed now. And so I had also asked her if she still had the sit down and shut up sign. And she didn't know. But then at the party, she had invited her customers. The guy who made the sign showed up with the stencil that he used to make the sign. Which begged the question, Nancy, did you find the sit down and shut up sign? Because I really wanted the sign, and she was really going to make me ask for it out loud. And so it was like, she said, yeah, I found the sign. And just like she had been preparing her quippy retort, she said, you can have the sign after you deliver my eulogy. Which is the nicest thing she's ever said. And that's pretty nice. So I get the sign after I deliver her eulogy. But her people live to be 108. So who knows if I'll get the sign. About the time the book came out, Leonardo DiCaprio, his production company, optioned it. He wants to play the kidnapper, Andy Shelton. So that was pretty interesting. Nancy and I are going to be full partners in the project. We're splitting everything even. And when I told her about that, she said, okay. I thought, man, I get a hug or something. And then she said, you know, I explained that we'll get a nice check if they make the movie. We get a little check, even if they don't, because they've optioned it. But, you know, maybe she'd want to start an education fund or something with her money. And she looked at me like, do not tell me what to do with my money. So then I said, well, maybe you just want to go to Hawaii and blow it there. And she said, that's what Uncle Willie always wanted me to go to Hawaii. Because he had gone to Hawaii with the circus, and he loved Hawaii. He remembered swimming with the dolphins. And so that was pretty special. And at the end of that visit, which was last year, I finally got a one-armed hug. And she said, Uncle Willie did always tell me, you will never regret taking care of me. So my last slide, literally this is really my last slide. This is a working title, working cover of my new book, which comes out August 7th of next year. The subtitle is wrong. The subtitle is going to be Dope Sick, Doctors, Dealers, and the Drug Makers That Addicted America, I'm pretty sure. So I started writing about heroin when I was a reporter for the Roanoke Times. I had the families beat. Heroin hit the suburbs of Roanoke real hard in 2010. It made the news when a prominent jeweler's son was arrested for his role in selling heroin to a former classmate at Hidden Valley, which is a kind of an upper middle class suburb. That's actually Hidden Valley on the cover, kind of a cookie cutter, but very nice subdivision. And these two families' lives were upended by it. And so I'm telling the story through 3 communities in Virginia as I witnessed it landing. I'm sure you've seen remnants of it here. I go back to the coal fields of Lee County, which is Virginia's westernmost county, and I talk about the introduction of OxyContin in 1996. And in order that I can not get totally depressed in this material, but not exaggerating it or anything, I've tried to find in each of the 3 communities heroes who are fighting back, helpers. So in the coal fields, it's this country doctor named Art Van Zee who calls up Purdue Pharma on the phone and says, your literature about this drug is wrong. You say it's not addictive, but we have high schoolers ODing in the library. And he and this feisty 83-year-old nun are fighting them at every turn, and in fact still are dealing with the aftermath. And so they're very much the heroes of that section. By the time the federal government prosecutes the 3 top executives at Purdue in Abingdon, Virginia, there's a sentencing hearing. You know who the parents are who come to testify about what the drug did to their kids. And there's a woman who brings an urn with her son's ashes and shakes it at them and says, this is what your drug did to my son. So then I document the arrival of pills and then heroin, which is the twin molecule, both derivatives of morphine, when it lands in the suburbs of Roanoke and in the city too. But it's bigger news when it happens to wealthy white families. And it's just one of these things that are really hard to stamp out. The heroes in that section, the Roanoke section, are these women who have lost their children who are now helping with the program called the Hope Initiative, which aims to divert people who are arrested with possession from jail into treatment. But it's really, really hard to get them to go. And there's this very fleeting liminal moment. And if they don't get them when they're ready to go, they lose them. And so one of the families I've been following is this young woman. I used to take her to NA meetings because she didn't drive. And I used to walk her baby around in the back of the meetings when he would get fussy. And I would record our interviews with her permission in my car, just like I did in the other 2 books, while I drove. And she's now AWOL. She's somewhere in Las Vegas, and she's prostituting herself. So that's a really, really hard story. Her parents are trying to get her back into treatment, but she's just, frankly, we don't know if she's alive today or not. We haven't heard from her since the middle of last month. I'm hoping we'll have some good news before I have to finish the book. And I just hope we'll have some good news. And then the third location is in the northern Shenandoah Valley, a little closer to here, in a little town called Woodstock, where in 2013, a twice convicted drug dealer arrives to finish out the last part of his sentence in a chicken plant. And it's one of those work diversion programs that's trying to give people skills, well-intentioned, but there's virtually no supervision. And he ends up bringing heroin in from Harlem in bulk. And this little tiny kind of idyllic farm town turns from about 5 known heroin users to a couple hundred almost overnight. And the heroes in that section are a local cop and an ATF agent who basically say, not in our town. And they basically arrest this big ring of heroin dealers that it's federal and state charges. So it's probably the hardest book I've written. It's very dark, but there are hopeful moments in it, and it's a really important story that we all should know more about, I think. So you all have been a great audience, and I'm happy to take questions.